What if everything you thought you knew about strength was backwards? Here's a truth that will shatter your worldview. The most powerful people in history weren't those who could control everything around them. They were those who mastered the art of controlling nothing except themselves. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Emperor of Rome, who could command legions and reshape empires, understood something that most people today have forgotten entirely. We live in a culture obsessed with control. We scroll through social media, desperately trying to control how others perceive us. We rage at traffic jams, as if our frustration could somehow move the cars faster. We lose sleep over market crashes, political elections, and other people's opinions, all things that exist completely outside our sphere of influence. This is not strength. This is the ultimate weakness, masquerading as power. The ancient Stoics called this fundamental misunderstanding the source of all human suffering. They identified a simple but revolutionary concept. There are only two categories of things in existence, those within our control and those outside it. Everything within our control can be reduced to one single element: our response to what happens to us. Everything else, literally everything else, belongs to the external world. Modern neuroscience has validated what the Stoics intuited 2,000 years ago. When we attempt to control external events, our brains activate the same stress pathways associated with physical threats. The amygdala floods our system with cortisol and adrenaline, preparing us for fight or flight against an enemy that doesn't exist. We're literally poisoning ourselves with stress hormones while trying to control the uncontrollable. But here's where it gets interesting. People who practice what psychologists call internal locus of control show dramatically different brain patterns. Their prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for rational decision-making, remains active even under stress. They've trained their minds to focus on the one thing they can actually influence: their own response. Watch any seasoned politician or CEO during a hostile interview. Notice how they never take the bait. When a journalist asks a loaded question designed to provoke an emotional reaction, these individuals have mastered something profound. They've learned to separate the stimulus from their response. Between every external event and our reaction lies a space, and in that space lies our freedom. This isn't about being emotionless or passive. It's about choosing your battles with surgical precision. When you understand that your emotional reactions are the only weapons others have against you, you become essentially invincible. You transform from a reactive victim of circumstances into a conscious architect of your own experience. The Stoics developed what we might call an algorithm for invincibility. Every time something happens that threatens to disturb your peace, you ask yourself one simple question: is this within my control? If the answer is no, you immediately redirect your energy toward what you can control: your response, your interpretation, your next action. This isn't denial or suppression. It's the ultimate form of mental jujitsu. You're not fighting external forces, you're using their energy against themselves. When someone insults you, instead of defending your ego, you examine whether the criticism contains useful information. When a project fails, instead of lamenting the failure, you extract the lessons and apply them to your next attempt. The paradox is complete. By giving up the illusion of control over external events, you gain absolute control over the only thing that truly matters: your inner state. This is the secret that transforms ordinary people into forces of nature, individuals who move through the world with unshakable confidence because they've discovered the one source of power that can never be taken away. The journey toward invincibility begins not with accumulating external power, but with a radical act of surrendering the illusion that you ever had it in the first place. Why do some people crumble under pressure while others seem to thrive in chaos? In 1962, a young Navy pilot named James Stockdale was shot down over Vietnam and spent 7 years as a prisoner of war. Tortured repeatedly, kept in solitary confinement, with no release date and no certainty he would ever see his family again, Stockdale not only survived but emerged as a leader among his fellow prisoners. When asked years later how he endured, his answer revealed something profound about human psychology. I never lost faith in the end of the story. I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life. This is what psychologists now call the Stockdale paradox, the ability to maintain unwavering faith in your ultimate success while simultaneously confronting the brutal facts of your current reality. It's the mental architecture that separates the truly invincible from those who merely appear strong on the surface. Recent research in neuroplasticity has revealed something extraordinary. Our brains are constantly rewiring themselves based on what we repeatedly focus on. When we consistently practice shifting our attention from external circumstances to internal responses, we literally reshape our neural pathways. The regions associated with anxiety and reactivity begin to atrophy, while the areas responsible for executive function and emotional regulation grow stronger. This isn't positive thinking or wishful visualization, it's cognitive architecture, the deliberate construction of mental frameworks that serve us rather than enslave us. People who master this don't experience fewer problems, they experience problems differently. Their brains have been trained to process difficulties as data rather than disasters. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his Meditations, provides us with a real-time glimpse into this mental training. As emperor, he faced plagues, wars, political betrayals, and personal losses. Yet, his private writings reveal a man systematically practicing what the Stoics called negative visualization, mentally rehearsing potential setbacks not to attract them, but to inoculate himself against their emotional impact. "What is grief except opinion?" he writes. "This isn't callousness, it's precision." He understood that suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our interpretations of those events. By questioning his automatic emotional responses, he was performing what modern cognitive behavioral therapy calls cognitive restructuring, examining and challenging the thoughts that create unnecessary suffering. Consider how elite athletes handle pressure. Michael Jordan didn't become legendary by avoiding high-pressure situations. He became legendary by reframing them. Where others saw the potential for failure and embarrassment, Jordan saw opportunities for transcendence. He trained his mind to interpret adrenaline as excitement rather than anxiety, to view crucial moments as privileges rather than burdens. This reframing isn't self-deception, it's strategic perception. The same physiological arousal that creates choking in one person becomes peak performance in another. The difference lies entirely in the story they tell themselves about what's happening. The truly invincible have mastered what we might call emotional alchemy, the ability to transform any emotion into fuel for growth. Anger becomes motivation, fear becomes focus, disappointment becomes data. They don't suppress these emotions, they metabolize them. This requires understanding a crucial distinction. Emotions are information, not instructions. When you feel angry, that's data about your current state, not a command to act aggressively. When you feel afraid, that's information about perceived threats, not an order to flee. By treating emotions as advisors rather than dictators, you maintain sovereignty over your actions. The Stoics developed a specific exercise called premeditatio malorum, deliberately imagining potential setbacks before they occur. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. By mentally rehearsing how you'll respond to various challenges, you're programming your automatic responses in advance. Modern psychology has validated this approach through implementation intentions, if-then plans, that short-circuit our tendency to react emotionally. If someone criticizes my work, then I will thank them and ask for specific feedback. If I face a setback, then I will ask what this teaches me about my approach. These predetermined responses become psychological armor. Perhaps the most counterintuitive aspect of invincibility is that it requires complete acceptance of your current reality. This doesn't mean resignation or passivity, it means acknowledging what is without wasting energy on what isn't. When you stop fighting reality, you free up enormous mental resources for actually changing what can be changed. The invincible person doesn't say, "This shouldn't be happening." They say, "This is happening now, what's my best response?" This subtle shift in language represents a fundamental shift in power. You move from being a victim of circumstances to being an agent of your own experience. True invincibility isn't about never falling down. It's about falling down with such grace and getting up with such purpose that the fall itself becomes part of your strength. What if the very thing you fear most is actually the key to your freedom? In 1945, Viktor Frankl walked out of a Nazi concentration camp and into history. Having lost everything, his family, his life's work, his health, he possessed something his captors could never touch: the ability to choose his response to suffering. From the depths of humanity's darkest hour, he extracted a truth so powerful it would reshape psychology forever. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of the human freedom stow: choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This isn't just inspirational rhetoric. It's the ultimate expression of human sovereignty. Frankl had discovered what the ancient philosophers knew and what modern neuroscience confirms. Consciousness itself is the final frontier of freedom, and mastering it makes you literally unconquerable. Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The people who achieve true invincibility don't just practice these techniques, they undergo what can only be described as a fundamental shift in identity. They stop seeing themselves as people who have experiences and start seeing themselves as the awareness that witnesses experiences. This isn't mystical nonsense, it's practical psychology. When you identify with your awareness rather than your circumstances, you become like a mountain watching weather patterns. Storms may rage around you, but they cannot touch what you fundamentally are. The executive who loses his company, the athlete who suffers a career-ending injury, the parent who faces an empty nest, these individuals discover that their core identity was never dependent on external roles or achievements. Society has a vested interest in keeping you reactive. Social media algorithms profit from your outrage. News networks thrive on your anxiety. Politicians gain power from your fear. The entire economy of attention depends on your inability to control your responses. In this context, choosing invincibility becomes a revolutionary act, a quiet rebellion against systems designed to keep you emotionally hijacked. The truly invincible represent a threat to any system that depends on reactive, controllable populations. They cannot be manipulated through fear because they've accepted the worst-case scenarios. They cannot be controlled through desire because they've found contentment in their ability to respond rather than in external outcomes. They become what the Stoics called the sage, a person who has achieved internal freedom regardless of external circumstances. The final piece of the puzzle is perhaps the most counterintuitive. True invincibility requires complete surrender to what is. This isn't passive acceptance. It's active alignment with reality. When you stop fighting what's happening and start working with it, you discover that resistance was the source of your suffering all along. Consider the master martial artist who defeats a stronger opponent, not through force, but through fluid adaptation. They don't resist their opponent's energy, they redirect it. Similarly, the invincible person doesn't resist life's challenges, they flow with them while maintaining their inner equilibrium. They become like water, soft enough to yield to any container, yet powerful enough to carve through stone. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of achieving invincibility is how it affects others. When you become truly unshakable, you give others permission to find their own stability. Your calm presence in chaos becomes a beacon for those still lost in reactive patterns. You don't need to preach or teach. Your very being becomes a demonstration of what's possible. This is why the truly invincible are often surrounded by people seeking their counsel. It's not that they have all the answers, it's that they've learned to ask the right questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of, "How can I control this situation?" they ask, "How can I respond with integrity?" The path to invincibility can be reduced to a simple algorithm that anyone can implement. Step 1. Recognize. Notice when you're being pulled into reactive patterns. Step 2. Pause. Create space between stimulus and response. Step 3. Choose. Deliberately select your response based on your values, not your emotions. Step 4. Act. Execute your chosen response with full commitment. Step 5. Learn. Extract lessons from the outcome without attachment to results. This isn't a one-time practice, it's a way of life. Each iteration strengthens your capacity for conscious choice until responding rather than reacting becomes your natural state. The ancients were right. Invincibility has nothing to do with never being challenged and everything to do with how you meet those challenges. It's not about building walls around yourself. It's about becoming so internally stable that external turbulence cannot disturb your core. In a world that profits from your reactivity, choosing invincibility is the ultimate act of rebellion. It's declaring that your inner state is sovereign territory, that your peace is not for sale, and that your power comes not from controlling others but from mastering yourself. The question isn't whether you'll face difficulties, you will. The question is whether you'll face them as a victim of circumstances or as the conscious architect of your response. Will you be the person who crumbles under pressure or the one who uses pressure to forge diamonds? The tools are available. The path is clear. The only question remaining is whether you have the courage to stop being a leaf blown by every wind and start being the mountain that watches storms pass. The cucumber becomes bitter. Throw it away. There are briars in the road. Turn aside from them. This is enough. Do not add, "What do such things exist in the world?" Marcus Aurelius. The invitation is simple. Stop asking why the world is as it is, and start choosing who you will be within it. In that choice lies your invincibility, your freedom, and your ultimate victory over everything that once seemed capable of defeating you. Your next challenge is waiting. Face it knowing that you carry within you the one power that can never be taken away, the power to choose your response. In that choice, you are already invincible.